And today we are actually going to start the program with an email that was sent to me at larry@magicmechanic.com. And the reason we want to start with this is because it's impacted a lot of different people. And this is from Jim in Altamont, and he's got a 2004 GM truck. And he said he was affected by the flood. The truck is still in water, and he can't get it out yet until the water recedes. But he says that the water is only just below the door line, which is a good thing, and his wheels are actually half covered in water. And his question is, are the brakes going to be affected if it sets in the water for several days? Jim, it's probably not going to hurt anything. They will, in a few days, your rotors will glaze over with some rust. And they'll do that by a lawn sprinkler as well. But everything down there is actually pretty sealed. The only thing that I would really be concerned with is your differentials. You are definitely going to want to go ahead and have those serviced immediately. See, your differential, I don't know whether this is a 2 or a 4-wheel drive. It says 2-wheel drive, but your rear differential in this vehicle has a vent. And what will happen is when you go through water, that water will get into the differential. And you definitely want to address that as soon as possible. As far as it getting in through the axles, I doubt very seriously that you get it through any water in through the axle seals unless they were physically already leaking. Now, the other thing that you do got to kind of hope that you don't run into is anything, your intake system. We just hope that is above the water line, that the engine didn't engulf any water. As long as you haven't ran the engine, you should be fine with that. But, front wheel bearings, you want to kind of pay attention to those too when you first start driving the truck because, a front wheel bearing seal isn't, these are hub bearings on these newer vehicles, and they do a good job of keeping grease in. I guess we're going to find out just how good of a job they do of keeping water out. So, if a vehicle's been in water, those are things we're really going to have to pay attention to. And I don't think you're really going to have any issues, but just make sure you get that rear differential serviced as soon as possible because I guarantee you there's water in it. And folks, I'm going to go ahead and follow up, after that email too. This is one of the things, and I was talking to, I was in the shop yesterday and I was talking to JD and I told him, I said, I really hope that a lot of folks that have issues like this, especially if the engine has engulfed water. I cannot stress, because people drive into water, next thing you know, it sucks it up in the motor and the engine shuts off. Well, you've only got a short period of time to save that engine. The water usually doesn't kill the whole motor. You know what I'm saying? Mechanically, it's still all right, providing the spark plugs get removed, the engine gets cranked over, and the cylinders get dried out. If that happens, then you're probably going to be able to save the engine. But if it sets, let's say, 4 or 5 days with water in those cylinders, it's going to rust and pit the cylinder walls up so bad in these engines that there's really not going to be any saving it. The engine would either have to be replaced or rebuilt. It'd have to be bored and new pistons and rings put in it. Or it would consume oil and smoke like crazy. So it really wouldn't be a good idea. But also keep in mind too, and I want to get to your calls here real quick. But folks, listen, if you've got full coverage insurance and you drove through water and you had an issue, whether it got water in the vehicle, it's affected electrical components, or whether it hydroed the motor and shut the engine down and maybe destroyed your engine. If you have full coverage insurance, it will be covered under your comprehensive, But if you've got an older car and it didn't have full coverage on it, you've got to get them spark plugs out of that engine immediately and crank that engine over, get that water flushed out of the engine, maybe get some penetrating oil spray down in each one of the cylinders, put the spark plugs back in and crank it till it starts up. It ain't going to like it, but it's going to have to get started up, and you're going to have to get it to normal operating temperature immediately so it dries those cylinders out. If not, that motor is not going to, it's not going to make it 5, 6, 7 days. It'll rust and pit it up so bad there won't be no fixing it.